Well, that's good. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, you gotta enjoy yourself. Yeah. So short.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Tuesday, March 1st, 2022 Planning Board meeting. It is now 7 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order, starting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Our very own veteran, Louie.
Gentlemen, please rise, face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time, I'd like everyone to pause for a brief moment of reflection. Thank you. At this time, we'd like to establish voting members. Appears as though we have a full board this evening. So, Mr. Patrick, looks like you'll be sitting this one out. Unless my math is wrong, we'll have a full 7. But I do thank you for showing up. Do we have I guess we have to have a motion to proceed with the regular members?
You feel me to do that?
Well, yep, you bring up a good point. So to that end, got some bad news for this board. I was informed this evening that Louie will be leaving us after tonight's meeting. Louie, you want to give him a quick synopsis?
Yes, I'm going to move to Florida. I've liquidated my property here, except for my house, and that'll be still sold in a few weeks. And I'm taking my wife down to Florida where we have family. Only relatives we have left are a grandson and granddaughter. The grandson just got commissioned in Officer in the Marine Corps. Granddaughter is a freshman in University of Georgia, so the family is grown up and gone. And we have other family in Florida, and there we're going to go. It's been an honor and a pleasure to work. I've been here for 52 years, by the way. Been an honor and a pleasure, and I wanted to bring this up in case anyone has any problem with me serving this last thing without a long-term interest in the county. I'd like to hear about it now, and if I'm asked to recuse, I will recuse. If not, I will do my very best to render a good decision on whatever comes up here. That's it.
Thank you, Louie. Any discussion?
You'll be missed.
I'll miss you guys too, I really will.
And actually, without Russell, you only have 6 voting members. You want it to be odd.
Oh, do?
Pam's an alternate.
Well, I could recuse myself as a voting member and let the alternate have a shot. Should I do that? I can participate and then not vote, can I?
You have to make a motion if you want.
Okay.
I'm sorry. No,
Can I make that a motion and see if anybody cares about doing that?
if you'd like.
So I would like to participate in the meeting, but give the alternate the voting right, because he'll be taking my place. And give you a practice.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Learn how to get that hand up so you'll know.
Roger that. Well, glad you did show up. The next agenda item is the approval of the agenda.
So that's still gives you 6 voting members. Yeah, Pam needs
We'd have to make.
Oh, I'm sorry. I assumed that she was a regular member.
Thank you for that, but I'm not. I'm an alternate. I appreciate
She
that.
does such a good job. All right, well, can we get an amended motion?
Make a motion, we make Pam do the voting members.
We have a second. All in favor? Sorry, Pam, you just do too good of a job.
All good.
Thank you for pointing that out. I need people to keep me in check.
That's what I was.
All right, the next item is approval of agenda. Please review the agenda and let me know if there's any additions or deletions or if there's a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the agenda as presented and also make note that the organization of tonight's meeting that Amy has so graciously done should be commended on that.
Yes,
And I would ask that we have a second, if you don't mind, to approve it.
All in favor of approving the agenda as well as the exquisite agenda packet we have here? Motion passes. Thank you all. Sir?
We voted on Christopher being instead of Louie voting, right? Is that right? Okay. Sure.
At this time, I'd like for you to take a moment to review the minutes for December 7th as well as January 4th meetings. And once you've done so, if there is a motion on the floor.
I make a motion to accept the meeting minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion passes. At this time, I'd like to open up the floor to public comments. Bear with me as I go through the brief spiel. Should we have persons wishing to speak for or against tonight's agenda items or any other public comment that signed up on the forms that were presented in the hallway? If you wish to speak on any of the agenda items but not have yet signed up, please let Amy know and we'll get that on there immediately. When your time comes to speak for public comment period, please state your name, address, whether you're speaking in favor or against the agenda item, should that be a factor. You have exactly 3 minutes to make your comments. We'll notify you when there's 30 seconds remaining, and then again when 15 seconds remain. I would ask, Louie always does such a great job, and I'm going to have to find another timekeeper moving forward, but Louie, if you wouldn't mind keeping that up, and Louie will raise his hand at the 30-second mark, 2 at the 15, and then when it's over, I'll speak up if that were to happen. No extra time is allowed unless a board member has any questions specifically to ask you, at which time you may respond to that question only. No person is allowed to give up their time or add to the time limit for another person. Once your 3 minutes are up, we ask you be seated. Anyone continuing beyond their allotted time will be asked to return to their seat. Should someone continue beyond that request, to be deemed out of order and asked to leave. Many items we cover at this meeting, it may become contentious and emotions may run high. We ask that everyone remain civil, respectful, and professional at all times. At no time is it acceptable for anyone to disparage the board, applicant, or any speaker. Shouting, name-calling, or any disrespectful behavior will result in being asked to leave or being removed. These rules are in place to ensure a fair and productive meeting. Thank you in advance for your cooperation. So starting on the public comments, I see we have Glenn Dillio.
Correct.
Please come up to the podium. Again, please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
My name is Glenn DeLeo. I live at 9211 Rustic Creek Trail, Waxhaw mailing address, but I live in the unincorporated community of Jackson Station. 11-month resident here, retired police lieutenant from New Jersey, did 4 years in Tennessee and moved down here for grandchildren watching. I try to put down my thoughts on paper. I know there's a 3-minute rule. I'll try to do the best I can. I moved here 11 months ago, as I said, and the issues with regard to overdevelopment and poor planning were immediately obvious to me, but really became evident with school starting up again in the summer, after the summer, and with the pandemic easing, leading to more work commuting towards 485 in Charlotte. We did not want to live in a subdivision and wanted more land and no HOA. Although we are still rural in nature, my wife and I can see the development creep coming. The western portion of Union County is the perfect storm for overdevelopment. Large parcels of farmland and undeveloped areas, impeccably rated schools, the country feels compared to the severe overdevelopment in Mecklenburg County, great climate to attract out-of-state young professionals and retirees, relatively low property taxes, low crime, an incredibly hot real estate market with little inventory, driving the prices of homes through the roof and created a hot market for newly constructed homes. Savvy owners of farmland or speculative owners of large tracts of land looking to sell off their parcels for large sums of money. Capitalism at its best. Equally savvy builders and developers who love to build high-density housing for large profits. The one clear reality is that builders/developers will build the most units that current zoning allows to maximize their profits. They simply build, they make money, and they move on. The existing citizens are left to live with the negative effects both economically, quality of life, and the additional aggravation of unbridled traffic congestion, which one cannot put a price tag on. There is a development currently being site cleared right now on Cuthbertson Road. It's a county project. It is called Encore at Streamside. It's been approved. They're site clearing it. There are I believe there is over 400 homes planned on both sides of the roadway. Some are market rate townhomes, and roughly 3/4 are going to be age-restricted housing on small, dense lot. Regardless of the traffic impact studies that were done prior to the approval, this will lead to further congestion on an already over-congested road. Have any of you been near Lowe's or Walmart on Cuthbertson and Providence Road recently, especially at high school and middle school dismissal time? It is an absolute nightmare. So people who are trying to leave Lowe's, what they do, path of least resistance. They cut onto Providence Road and they cut through the neighborhood of Curitan. Not fair to the residents of Curitan, I agree, but I do it because you cannot get onto Cuthbertson from Lowe's. It's impossible. With this new development, it's going to be even more impossible. Have you been on Providence Road going toward 485 recently during school rush hour? It is a mess. Waxhaw Marvin Road going toward Bonds Grove Church Road, a mess. I went 2/10 of a mile last week. It took me 8 minutes to get through that intersection. 8 minutes. I am a retiree. People that go to work every day are suffering. There are a portion of Providence Road, there are no turn lanes into subdivisions and onto Bronze Grove Church Road, so the traffic just queues up. It's poor planning on account of the county, Waxhaw, Mineral Springs, Marvin, Weddington, all up the line of 45. People are moving from Waxhaw to Weddington to cut a half an hour commute off to 45. Ridiculous. There has to be a new way of thinking and new strategy for the western part of Union County. This constant building of high-density housing cannot continue. It will negatively affect the entire area. More traffic congestion, increase in property taxes as the needs for additional schools and services increase, school redistricting. I could go on and on. It all starts and ends with new zoning regulations and creative thinking and planning. We, the ordinary citizens who have no voice in these matters, rely on you, the board. You are saviors. Don't be more allegiant to builders and developers and their powerful lobby interests. Undoubtedly, as we speak now, there are more projects in the pipeline. The following policy, this is just my view. I came from New Jersey. There is severe overdevelopment in the western part of the state. If you could take this county down, Hunterdon County, New Jersey, perfect example. These are some of my recommendations. Effective, and some of them may be not attainable, but this is worst case scenario in my effective immediately, a moratorium on any new
Sir.
building until the roads and the zoning laws are improved.
Sir, your time is up. I do appreciate your interest in the community, and I will say at the end of the meeting, I will make myself available if you'd like to talk one-on-one beyond this.
I would like to, yes. Thank you
Thank you,
very
sir.
much. Thank you for your time,
Chairman.
everyone.
Yes, sir.
What subdivision sheet is he talking about? Where is it? It's not on the agenda.
This is just public comments.
I know that, but what,
It doesn't, it's just general comments.
has it even come to us before yet?
No, this is just general comments.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, that means that we're up to our agenda items. We're starting out with rezoning case CZ 2021-009, Steel Point. Mr. Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Board. It's been a while since I've presented one of these. Bjorn is in a class tonight, so he's not going to be with us. So he drafted me to come back up here and present this. So I hope I do as good a job as he typically does. Again, as you stated, this is case CZ 21009, titled Steel Point rezoning. The request is to rezone 17-acre piece of property. You see the parcel number on the screen. Advanced Township is currently zoned R20. The request is to rezone it to light industrial with conditions in order to expand an existing manufacturing business which is already adjacent to the site. And again, it'd be light industrial conditional. Condition is a 200,000 square foot manufacturing facility as described in the site plan, which you'll see in just a second. Here it is. The existing business would be on your left of the property. You can see it's labeled existing Steel Point facility. There's a creek that runs in between the properties. They would access this new property with a small causeway that would cross that creek. There are some permitting steps you would have to go through to do that, but it is doable. And then as you see, it's broken into 3 phases. I'm not going to go in the depth on the phases. I'll let the applicant talk about what that means. But you can see it's on Union West Boulevard, 3 points of access, all on Union West, and again, light industrial. Some of the existing conditions, looking at the site, there's a house on the property right now. That's looking at the site, looking north, and then the picture to the right of that, so top right, is looking at the business that's currently there. South side of the site, there's some residential properties, and I'll talk about that in just a second. And then the west side of the site is an open field. And this is in the general area. I don't know if you recall, several months ago, we had a gentleman that rezoned or requested to rezone a piece of property from R20 to RA20 in order to have, I think it was a cow. This is right across the street from that. So we have two rezonings in the same general area in the last just a few months. Highlighted in black, as you see right in the middle of the screen, that's the subject piece of property. It is surrounded. The pinkish color is the town of Stallings, and the greenish color is the town of Indian Trail. If this were a residential area, then this would be considered a transition zone. We'll talk about the land use plan in a minute, but because this is projected as future industrial, it's not a transition zone. So it is a donut hole, but it's not considered a transition zone because it's projected as future employment uses. It is a mostly vacant site. There are a couple houses on it, but for the most part, that's it. Around it, you can see Union West Boulevard, Beltway, Cupped Oak Drive. That's a Union West Business Park. You can see there's a lot of industrial users already in that park. And then again, Van Buren Avenue off of Indian Trail Fairview Road. There's a lot of industrial uses there. And this is just off of Independence Boulevard, just off of Highway 74. So just north of this, you can kind of see, doesn't show it really well on this map, but East Monroe Expressway, this is the new bypass, kind of where my cursor is going. So this is right at the bypass and 74 where they come back together. And then north of the site, you do see some older residential uses. As far as environmental features go, as I stated, there's an existing stream between the existing facility and the property that they'll cross with the causeway. So that stream is there. There is a floodplain on that stream. However, we've had our stormwater engineer look at it, and there are some permitting steps that would need to go through to make that happen. But it is possible to cross that stream and impact that floodplain with a small driveway. Other than the stream and the floodplain, there are no other significant environmental features on that property. Current zoning, you can see it's kind of a mix of a lot of different stuff. That purple, and really the red and Stallings, these are both a mix of type of business and industrial zoning. So you can see there's already a lot of business and industrial zoning in the area. Everything kind of to the north of that is some higher density residential and then some lower density residential. And just the difference between Stallings and Indian Trail. Subject property is currently zoned R20. Again, as I talked about before, you have the Monroe Expressway. It's a new facility. It's not been open very long. Most of you have probably driven on it at least once. It's a nice facility. Gets traffic through Union County pretty quickly. The other significant roads, again, you have the existing Highway 74 and Indian Trail Fairview roads in the area and Stallings Road. And this is the land use plan. This is what I was referring to when I was talking about the transition zones. If you'll remember in the 2050 comprehensive plan, a lot of these donut holes were designated as transition zones, mainly to give some say to the towns that surround these in rezoning decisions, but that was only for residential rezonings. All the committees, planning board, and the board of county commissioners were all pretty clear that they wanted to increase the commercial and industrial tax base, and they wanted to accommodate industrial and commercial zoning in the unincorporated part of the county, even if it was in a donut hole. So that's why this is not in a donut hole, because this is considered an employment center in the current comp plan. It was considered an employment center in the previous comp plan. It's not really changed that much over the years. So this whole area that you see that's in the county jurisdiction is projected as light industrial employment type uses. There was a community meeting held on February 17th. There were about 5 residents there. No major concerns were raised. I actually attended that meeting. There was some talk about some screening on some adjacent residential properties. And I think there was some talk from the business park POA about adopting some of their rules. That wouldn't be really something that this board would consider. That would be something between the existing POA at the park and the property owners. But those are the 2 main things that I heard. No changes were really made to the site plan based on those comments. We did solicit comments since Indian Trail and Stallings were both close. The proposed uses were supported by those municipalities. They also call in their plans for those areas to be developed for employment type uses. Stallings did indicate that even though they supported the uses, they would prefer to annex into the town, but that's not a requirement. That would be an option that the applicant would choose. So we always go through and come up with some negatives and positives of the proposal and come up with an overall staff recommendation. Most of the negatives are, in our mind, minor and mitigated by most of the positives. As you can see, there are some existing residential uses that are adjacent to the proposed use. This is probably the best map. You can see there's some adjacent residential uses here, and you've got I think this is Forest Park subdivision, I think is the name of this. Some of these residential uses are actually projected to be, so some of those right here were projected to be future industrial, and in fact are already zoned industrial by the town of Indian Trail. So that kind of does a lot of mitigating to this first comment. Development would add some traffic on those roads, although it's an industrial use, so it's not a terribly large amount of traffic. And then the current business in Stallings, which they have their own police department, this new business would be in the unincorporated part. So you might have some complicating issues with emergency response, but don't really think that's a huge concern, because I know we have a joint response agreement with the town of Stallings, so I think that's kind of mitigated by that factor. Positives are the area is identified as an employment corridor on the county's 2050 comprehensive plan. The site can be served by existing Union County water and sewer. We did run this by Union County Public Works. It would flow into the Crooked Creek wastewater treatment plant. There is current capacity in the plant today. We can't predict the future. We don't know, 6 months from now, but today it can be served. There is capacity to serve it, and a lot of that's just getting in line. And the development would allow the expansion of an existing business, and that's been a goal of the Union County Economic Development. That's been a goal of the commissioners as reflected in the Union County 2050 Comprehensive Plan and previous comprehensive plan for years. We want to, that's been a goal to change that tax base. So based on those factors, staff recommendation is for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Yes, ma'am.
I didn't read in the notes or anything the type of business this is and what it's going to be expanding.
Sure. I'll let the applicants go into a little bit more detail, but they make trailers. So like trailers you would pull behind a truck,
Okay.
but big ones.
Okay. All right. Got it.
Yeah.
And-
Yes, sir.
Lee, clarification purposes. So we had a community meeting on February 17th,
Yes, sir.
2022. Now, if you look at the number of houses that were adjacent to this, I find it funny that a total of 5 neighbors attended out of the quantity that you outlined for us. So it's evident that the neighbors don't have a problem with this. Am I interpreting that right?
So I know the neighbors that are kind of over where my cursor is, they actually attended the meeting, and I think they did talk a little bit about some buffering, but I did explain the county's buffer requirements, and that seemed to be fine.
Okay.
Right. But most of these other uses, kind of to the west and south and east, these are industrial users. But yeah, there are some residents in this neighborhood. I can't swear to you that every single one of these folks got a letter in the mail for the community meeting. For the planning board, we do try to expand it a little bit beyond. The minimum requirement is all adjacent property owners, but we try to expand a little bit beyond that. We don't necessarily just limit it to the adjacents, but I can't tell you every single person that got a letter. But yeah, there were just a handful of folks that showed up to the community meeting.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
What else, what else is in that, that business park, and as opposed to light industrial? Do you know?
Yeah, it's mostly light manufacturing type uses. I think there are some office type uses. But it's mostly light industrial manufacturing. This would fit.
Making trailers is light industrial?
I'm sorry?
The making of trailers is light industrial?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Just riding through, Union West Business Park's been there for a good while. It's been there as long as I've been with the county. Most of the uses that are in there, I think would look similar to this. I think this would fit in well with the business park.
Any
Yes, sir.
further?
Could you go to your, one of your first slides, it was the drawing of the plan? Yeah, right there. Okay, so it's the same one. Okay. That takes care of one question, it's the same
Okay.
one. I misread it when it first came up. What is there a buffer from the stream or the floodplain that you have to be?
Yes, so there is a floodplain located on that stream, and the applicant actually has a slide that I think they're going to show that they're not going to be inside that floodplain. We don't allow development in floodplain either, anyway. Okay. So, but they have a slide showing that they're not going to be in the floodplain. And then a lot of these hashed areas, what these are sort of showing are areas where there are existing trees, and then the hashed areas are actually areas where those trees are going to be preserved. Most of this area, the environmental slide's probably the best one to look at. Most of the area is an open field right now, but again, you have some trees right here, and there's trees along the stream. And that sort of indicates that those areas are, for the most part, going to be maintained. There are some that are going to have to come down over towards Sharon Lane because there's a parking area that needs to go in that area. But that's consistent with our ordinance. We do have some tree preservation requirements, but this would generally meet that requirement, actually generally exceed that requirement. Yes, sir.
Now, Lee, on this proposed site plan, right in the very front, right above the Union West Boulevard, writing, it looks like a parking area, is that correct?
Right here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Would that be employee parking?
I assume so, probably employees and visitors, but I'll let the applicant address that.
And would it be to scale?
I'm sorry?
Would it be to scale?
Yes, I think there is a scale on this map.
Well, I'm trying, I can't count the spots, but it looks like there's be about 60, 70 spots, you think?
That's probably about right.
For 40, 50 employees?
Yeah, that's probably about right.
Not too shabby.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, these plans are conceptual in nature, so they're not to be taken as gospel. If it's approved by the Board of County Commissioners, there's always a condition that says you have to meet all the, requirements of the Union County Land Use Ordinance. So we do have parking calculations that have to be met. Generally, a light industrial use, the parking calculation is not, you would think a building, 200,000 square feet, you gotta have a lot of parking spaces for that, but a light industrial use doesn't generally require that parking calculation doesn't add up to a whole lot of parking.
Give you an idea how many jobs would be created, though, doesn't it?
Yeah,
That's what I'm looking at.
right, I know, yeah.
That was going to be my question, increase in employment, yeah.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
One more question. You said that there was a roadway that's going over some type of creek or something?
Yes, it's on, on this plan, kind of where my cursor is, it says causeway bridge access. So that's going over that creek. Their existing business is right here.
Is it a bridge or?
I'll let the applicant address it. I would imagine it's probably going to be a pipe with a driveway over the top of it.
Okay, so Army Corps of Engineers doesn't have to get involved?
No, they will, but that's such a small impact. They have what they call a nationwide permit. That would likely, I won't swear to it, but that would likely be covered by the nationwide permit. If it's not, they would have to get an actual permit for this site. But that small area of impact, that probably won't be that difficult to obtain. And we have some local floodplain standards that they would have to meet, but driveways are built over floodplains all the time, so you can meet those standards.
Any further questions for Lee?
All right. The
Thank you,
applicant
Lee.
is here, and I think they are going to speak.
All right, well, this time I'd like to invite the applicant to come up here and speak.
Your things are there, and there. Oh, and sorry, I always forget about the touch screens. You can't see it, but you can.
Well, thank you for having me. My name's Deborah Edwards. My husband, Michael, is also here, my husband and business partner. We bought this business back in 2010. It had about 18 employees. To your point about job creation, it had about 18 employees. We now have between 65 and 70 employees, depending on, what day or week you ask me. We have grown the business over that period of time. We started looking for a new site, how to expand our business. The happy news being that we needed to expand. We were doing very well, and in 2019, we started looking for a new site all over Union County, all over Mecklenburg County, and really, we're having a lot of difficulty finding a site that we liked as well as we liked our current location. No compelling empty buildings to renovate, no really great locations that wouldn't be disruptive to our current employee base, which, a large percentage of which come from Union County. the site, this 17-acre site next to us wasn't really available back in 2019. And then, of course, the pandemic hit, and okay, maybe we were glad we hadn't doubled or tripled our monthly expenses. But we came through the pandemic better than a lot of people anyway. Little downturn in 2020. Saw that coming back in 2021 very nicely, and so we renewed our site search at that time and discovered that this 17-acre site right next door was going to be available to us. It's not perfect, you know, it has a fairly significant slope to the site, which our architects, who are also here and will be speaking with you about the details of the site plan, as Mr. Jensen has suggested. But at the end of the day, we realized that that was the best option for us. It needed to be rezoned, but it's in the 2050 plan as an employment center. And at working with your planning staff, you know, we began to put the pieces together to feel like, you know, again, that this could be supported, could be good for our business, good for our employee base, and, you know, least disruptive to them, and good for the county, because our goal is to continue to grow at the pace that we've grown over the last 12 years, and to grow in phases. That's when you looked at that site plan, and again, Dave Wagner is here with me and will speak some more about this, but we're planning, you know, a 2 to 3 phase project so that we can grow gradually as our business grows. And with that, unless you have questions for me, I'd like to introduce you to Dave Wagner with the architectural firm of Wagner Murray in Charlotte. Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you for the interest in economic development in Union County. And as I look at this, I've got a question. I assume you did a business plan.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, sir.
Okay. Taking 2020 and looking to 2025, by investing in this, if it's approved, do you see a X, Y, or Z % increase in your business by 2025?
I'm glad you asked that. And a couple of you also asked questions about the nature of our business. So let me back up just a moment before I get to that. And I might invite my husband, Michael Edwards, to come up as well. He, as you can imagine, there's a lot of analysis that goes into this. You don't undertake this kind of expansion without a lot of work, internal work, as well as working with banks and others to see if you can afford it, you know? How can you afford it? One reason for the phased approach. Our business is, we are in the business of making high-end, heavy-duty trailers. So these aren't your lightweight landscaping trailers that you see going down the road. We specialize in the rental industry. So our customers are big box rental. Home Depot is a large customer of ours. So, for example, if you went to Home Depot to rent, you know, a skid steer, that would be on our equipment trailer. It's not trailers that you buy at you know, Northern Tool or Home Depot or somewhere like that. But if you're renting a piece of construction equipment, those are the type of trailers that we specialize in. They have to be able to hold up to the brutal rental market. We also have a pump and power division, so we sell to customers like Cummins and JCB, BBA pumps, you know, a variety of generator and pump manufacturers that mount their products onto our trailers. A large share of their business is also into rental. So again, these trailers have to be heavy duty to hold up to that market. Mick, my husband's nickname is Mick, so I apologize. Mick, do you want to tell him a little bit about the growth of the company over the next 5 years?
So we see tremendous growth. We're at total capacity right now. We're actually outsourcing some of our fabrication down to Lancaster. We actually in discussion with a group in Oklahoma. We have a couple of projects that are long-term growth projects that we've just signed a contract with. So we see the number of trailers, we currently, might sound not a lot, but it's up to, we expect to get something like 4,000 of these this year. We intend to get to 8,000 by 2025 is what we're looking for. And so what we're looking at right now, which Deborah didn't mention, but I'm sure you would have got to it, but is that we're moving some of our trailer frames we ship out. We fabricate the frames, put them on a truck, and ship them all the way over to Gaston County to get them powder coated. And that's one of the things we're looking to put in one of these buildings as we grow out to be a lot more efficient in what we do. So we have a lot of demand across a wide portion of the rental business, and that's just a portion of what we're really looking at targeting in the next coming 5 years.
It sounds encouraging, you know, especially for the county, that's for sure. So thank you for the interest and doing what you're doing. I know can't be easy.
Yeah.
Question for you, though. You have it into 3 phases. How long are your business projections that it's going to take to build these phases out? Is it going to be the 5 years? Is it 2 years? Is it what are you anticipating?
I'm happy to answer that.
Well, either way, and Dave could speak to it as well. You know, those are, I mean, it's a 5-year plan.
Okay. That answers the question.
But we're noodling right now. I mean, we phased it right now, working with our architects as a 50,000 square feet, 50,000 square feet, getting up to 100,000 square feet fairly quickly, with the ability to add another 80,000 square feet on the backside. You know, again, their job is to advise us, you know, what is the maximum building we can put here and still have the outdoor space that we need for trucks, for staging. We build to order, so we don't build to inventory. It's not speculative manufacturing. We build to order, but there's involved in that is still a lot of inventory turnover. We're building trailers, you know, 20, you know, to 50 ultimately a day. You know, those have to go somewhere while you're waiting on trucks to pick them up and ship them out across the country.
Where I was going with that, based on that phase, is I guess more of within the community of neighbors and stuff, you know, kind of the light pollution, the noise pollution. Are there any smells that happen? Because I know you have an existing business now, and you have, you know, I guess during the day, whatever your business hours now, certain lights, maybe your lights are, you know, you're on 24/7, the security, what's associated to that. So as you grow, that light and that noise, and if there's any smells, there's any aesthetics to that, is also going to be ramped up. And even though it is in an light industrial, and that's meant to be, there still is some offsets of residential. So I'm just curious kind of what that's going to look like as you start to grow in that space.
Well, I think the first thing I would say is that, you know, our existing business is not, which is about 55,000 square feet, is not a noisy business. You know, most of what we do is inside, and the noise is inside. A lot of our employees wear hearing protection, but if you drove by our property, or if you lived, you know, 100 yards behind the property, it's probably a good 100 yards or more before you get to that residential neighborhood, the actual Forest Park neighborhood back there, you would not hear our business.
But the construction of the phases, you will hear the noise, and that's why I wanted to know the
I would
timing.
say, of your question, the only thing that I think would grow would be lights. I mean, lights are going to be required for security at night. I used to manage real estate and facilities for Piedmont Natural Gas before I retired at the end of 2016 and joined my husband over here. He didn't let me stay retired very long. And there are a lot of advancements. Dave knows a lot more about it than I do, but there are a lot of advancements in the way that you stage lighting for
Yes, I
security
agree with that.
purposes and that kind of thing. And of course, it's the same thing I said to the Sheeran family, who owns that strip of property behind, and then the elderly Ms. Sheeran actually lives kind of across the street next to the neighbor with the cow.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just the kind of people that are going to be good neighbors. We'll do everything reasonably possible to reduce the impact to, our business neighbors and those residential neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ask you about your trailers. They are obviously not the 40 and 53-foot trailers, that commercial.
No, they're not that big.
Yeah, okay.
They're anywhere from 8 to 30 feet.
Okay,
So they're-
mostly steel?
They're
All steel.
Okay.
We don't do wood deck trailers. They're all heavy-duty steel trailers.
Well, then obviously you're not gonna get any smells, because you'd be cutting and welding steel. This would be a great deal of what you do.
All in interior, yep. Yep. Steel, like the metal, -point.com is our website. Have a look. I think it's a business you'd be proud to have here and to help us grow.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, other than welding, of course, is a skill. So that's generally a high-pay skill. I bet you know that when you write your paychecks. What other skills does your staff have?
So
The employees have?
we have laser operators. We just bought our first robotic welding machine.
Okay.
So we had a young man who learned how to program that robot, and we hope to add to that. I assured all of our existing workforce that we weren't replacing them, but it does help us grow to be able to add some of that automation. But we have forklift drivers, truck drivers, machinists. I'm kind of running through the process. So machinists, laser operators, press brake operators, and then assemblers.
What I'm looking for is like what I'm asking, how
Yeah.
much you paying. It looks like
We made
it looks
a
like you have a.
We made a
people-
commitment.
people-
I also want to say, we made a commitment back before this was popular to not have an employee who made less than $15 an hour.
Right.
So our grinders and custodian don't make less than 15. In fact, I don't have an employee right now that makes $15 an hour. They're all more than that.
Because we have people who kill chickens here already. I'm happy to see that they got some good technical jobs.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
One other question I've got.
Okay, sorry about that.
On the transportation report, we see that the county staff installed a traffic counter in February 2022. It determined that approximately 1,800 vehicles per day use Union West Boulevard, immediately west of Beltway Boulevard. I think if there's any way, working with your people and Bjorn, you might try to, if this passes, and if it does go to the Board of Commissioners, maybe you look at 2025 like you did with us with your business plan, and do an estimated from 1,800 to X, Y, or Z by 2025 on the traffic count.
Yeah.
Just think about that, because it's something that we do look at every time we have something like this. Traffic is very important.
Yes.
And we heard a comment earlier as we started out about what's happened to Providence Road. And I think it would help show that you've done some outstanding due diligence to research this out. You've done the business side, do the logistics side.
Was that number, I'm sorry, was that 1,800 per
1,800
day?
per day, yes, ma'am.
So that's really interesting. We're not aware of that data. So I would say, our current 55,000 square foot facility has, call it 65 employees, and probably 10 trucks a day delivering steel or picking up product to ship out. So if a 50,000 square foot facility has 10 trucks, then a 100,000 square foot facility might have 20 trucks, right? I mean, just.
Plus employees.
Plus,
employees.
additional employees. So you can
Just
kind of
think about it.
extrapolate that.
Just think
to-
about it.
I don't, it's kind of interesting. I mean, 1,800 cars a day. Beltway Boulevard that we're on is a private road. It was not made public when that business park was built. Union West was required to be built because it connected to Sheeran Lane, which was a residential street. Beltway Boulevard goes around and connects to that residential neighborhood, and I would be willing to bet that those little things that go across the road don't tell you who the traffic is, but I bet most of those 1,800 cars a day come from that residential neighborhood, down that private road.
Could be.
That we have to
Could
pay
be.
for.
Yeah.
So,
I wanted to note that I asked Bjorn to put the traffic counter out because of the reworking of all these streets. She's right, Sharon Lane used to go through, so a lot of these streets were reworked when the bypass was built. So we didn't have good current data on traffic count. So we always like to provide you with
Right.
NCDOT numbers, we just didn't have it. So we have our own traffic counters, we installed them, but those traffic counters, again, they were just west of Beltway Boulevard, so it's picking up the entire business park. And we honestly didn't think about her comment, but we are gonna go back at some point and install the traffic counters sort of where,
on the other, yeah.
the neighborhood is, because I agree, I think a lot of that traffic, because you can see that neighborhood can go out Union West Boulevard, right onto the service road for 74, then they can jump right onto Independence Boulevard. So I have a suspicion that that's probably an accurate statement, that a lot of that traffic is from the residential neighborhood.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lee.
Can the county assist them with trying to siphon through some of that information?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure that would help the board.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I got one more question for you. You said you build these to order, all these
Yes,
trailers?
yes.
So do you have a company that comes in and picks them up and delivers them, or do you deliver them yourselves? Do you have your own trucks?
No, we don't, we do have 2 trucks, but we rarely use them to deliver product to customer. Most of it's arranged through common carriers.
Okay.
So when I reference the 10 trucks a day, I'm talking, a couple of our trucks coming back and forth, and then, 5 to 10 trucks delivering and picking up.
But these are like big flatbed tractor trailers with the
Yes,
steel?
sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Lee, we have a lighting ordinance, right? So the lighting wouldn't be,
We generally require full cutoff, like, so.
do you work 7 by 24 or?
No, we're a one-shift company, and
One
hope we
shift.
always will be. Very hard to manage a second shift.
Yeah, so the lights wouldn't be on.
And to clarify, full
So the
cutoff,
only-
you
the
mean
only
no
lights
light
would be
beyond the
security
property line?
Security lights.
Yeah, so you might have some security lights, I guess.
It's just going to be a little bit more light pollution. I'm just thinking, I'm just thinking for the general area.
Yeah, full cutoff, it's not that the residents next door won't be able to see it.
Mhm.
Full cutoff lights do a really good job of lighting the site. They really prevent light spillover. So
Right.
if you're in your house and the lights are on, you're going to see the business. But when you walk out your backyard, you'll remember just some I like gas stations. Just gas stations, in the
They're
80s
just
and 90s.
straight
just
down.
downward.
It lit up everything.
Yeah.
So not only the gas station site, but everything.
Everything around it.
The newer lights,
Or the
if you're
down.
walking through the gas station lot, it's white. But if you walk just
Outside
over the
of it,
property line,
it's dark.
You can see it, but it's
Mhm.
dark. So that's what we'll cut off.
So to clarify, though, full cutoff is 0-foot candles at the property line?
Correct.
Very
Yeah.
negligible. You have some other folks want to,
Well, if you
Percent.
want Again, I've introduced Dave Wagner, our architect, who was going to show you the site plan in a little more detail, I believe, especially if you have more questions about it.
I think
I'd like to see it. If
it'd be a
you're-
good idea to bring them up just in case anyone did have any questions for him.
Have a quick, and he's got it pulled up here, Dave, so you can click on, yeah.
All right, Lee, what did you do with this? It won't click on.
Let me see if I can click the one above. There you go.
There you go.
Thank you. David Wagner, Wagner Murray Architects, 720 Summit Avenue, Charlotte, North Carolina. What I'd like to do is, unless you have any specific questions, I'll go through this rather quickly because I do have an attribute that we're going to add to this project that you are currently unaware of. Let me start again left to right on my side. As Deb mentioned, the building is on the contiguous piece of property. That area that you see that's shaded is actually, it's a riparian area, but as the Corps of Engineers describes that area, it is an intermittent stream bed, which means that intermittent means by definition not a lot of flow or water. But regardless, we still need to maintain a 50-foot buffer from the center line of the creek to the edge of any paving. So we're completely out of that area with regard to construction. I think another comment had to do with the clearing of the site. It's a 17.5 acre site. We're going to clear approximately 13 acres. So what I think Deb mentioned, the diagonally hashed lines are preserved trees. The dotted area are trees that need to be removed to capacitate the 3 phases of the project. The first phase, as Deb mentioned, as shown on the plan, is phase 1 and phase 2, which collectively are about 100,000 square feet. So if the project moves to build that much, the first phase would be 100, the second phase would be the second 100,000, and it would be according, obviously, to the business model and when it would be best executed. But one thing we will do in order to save money, excuse me, is to grade the entire site first time. There's a lot of reasons for that. And once the site is graded, we're able to expand it rather quickly and don't have to bring grading equipment back on. Because as Deb said, there is a slope on the site, and when you're dealing with a site this large, we try to balance cut and fill so that all the material that is moved on the site is relocated, so we're not using heavy trucks to move the material off the site. We're also going to use a considerable amount of that excavation to berm between the residential area to the north. So in effect, and we explained this to the residents who live in this area at the public meeting, that they will not be able to see this building from their backyard. They'll have to climb up a 6-foot mound and look over. So in addition to the berm, we will also landscape it so that it would be effectively not seen. But here's the high point of what we're doing, and I think it'll allay a lot of your concerns. The owners have agreed to allow us to pursue LEED certification. If you're familiar with LEED, it is a sustainable design that we will incorporate. Now, what LEED does is, in addition to preserving as much land as possible, we go a long way to get credits so that it meets those standards. As an example, cutoff lighting is a perfect component to LEED certification. You cannot have any lighting on a building that in any way affects the ambiance of the space. So basically, it's safety and security only. So we would have to have that kind of lighting, but that lighting does not go up, it goes down. So it's effectively against the side of the building and the parking area. With regard to preservation, the remaining portion of the site that we do not excavate, we're going to allow it to be a natural habitat, which means that now it is a farmer's field. If we let it grow, it will grow naturally back to its use, its previous use. So therefore, it is a preserved portion of the site wrapping the entire area. Other components we will look at are pervious parking, which means, again, runoff is an issue with projects this large, so where do you put the water in a storm? We obviously have to, by code, build a retention area, but that retention area is typically naturally vegetated, so it doesn't really look like, it looks like a pond that is not full unless the water is contained within. And then it controls the runoff, into the stream area to the east. So all these things will be taken into consideration as we develop the design, and I think you'll be pleased that if we can achieve a LEED certification, we'll shoot for one mid-range silver, if you're familiar with its certification, gold, or silver, gold, and platinum. This project, because it's a manufacturing facility, would not attempt to get that high on a certification. But one thing that also interests you is we are planning to power this facility with 100% voltaic, which means we would have a solar panel farm on its roof, and the excess will be sold back to the grid. So all these things are very positive in these kinds of developments because typically you don't see projects developed this way. So the good thing is that it's going to be a very sensitive building to the environment and to the park. And of course, as Deb and Mick described to you, all of this all of the fabrication and the assembly all occurs indoors. Nothing is outside the facility. There is a storage area that we will construct that stores trailers ready to leave. Those are finished product that have to be in a secure area. Obviously, are lit at night for safety and security. With regard to parking, you asked a question earlier. Code only requires about 50 spaces for this facility. We'll probably put a few more in than 50 for overflow and also for additional truck parking and maneuvering on the site. But effectively, when this is in place, we're trying to disturb a minimal amount of property to do this so that the natural area is maintained. Thank you.
Mr. Wagner, I do acknowledge the LEED certification. That is certainly above and beyond the bare minimum, so thank you for that. Two questions I have for you. The retention area, I'm assuming it's where it's shown as just a note on the plan. Is that pretty much what you're thinking? The other question is regarding the buffer. Obviously, you're going to be using some topsoil to build the berm. Is there, what type of vegetation, what is the distance of that buffer from the property line in, just for our reference?
Well, of course, it's a diagonal line, so at the closest point from this corner of the property to the building is about 80 feet. The furthest point is about 180 feet. And again, as Deb mentioned also, the contour in this site essentially is west to east in this direction. So when we grade the site, we will naturally berm from the back of the access road to the site or to the property line, so it'll be a gradual slope down to that parking area or down to the building. But again, on top of that slope, we will be building the buffer along the property line. So that's where a lot of the excess fill would go, and the berm would be landscaped. There's a requirement to landscape the berm anyway by the county, so we would be doing that. So really from the residential area to the north of this, you really won't see this building unless you climb the berm.
Any other questions for Mr. Wagner? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
This time I'd like to open it for public comments. Name I see on the list here is Sarah, is that Pfeffer?
Yes, I'm up there.
Okay, so don't wish to speak? That being said, we close the public comments. This time I'd like to encourage the board to discuss the proposal amongst themselves.
Well, I want to ask how we get this for our developers, for residential. I think this is excellent. This is over and beyond. I mean, to think about all those different aspects, I mean, I'm very encouraged. I'm going to look for a job. I would vote for.
Robert?
I think it's a great project. It fits right in with the neighborhood and the 2050 comp plan. Great to see a company in Union County growing and going to have more employees. And I think it's great, so I would vote for it.
Louie?
I'm quite a bit for it. One of the things that was, the officer came up here to talk about the tremendous traffic and congestion that he has, people driving all over the place, and the residential development. With this, it creates jobs, and instead of driving all the way to Charlotte, people are driving to their jobs, so you're putting less wear and tear on the roads, and you're providing good income. From pressing, not daintily, but trying to press these owners, it looks like they got pretty good paying jobs, because the skills that they require means you get some guys who making some pretty good money. And it'll naturally put a little tax money in our pockets to help make this place a better place. And they're not gonna use my school system. So heck, welcome, happy to have you.
Vice Chairman Fisher.
Like I said earlier, I think this is a great economic development opportunity for Union County. I think what they're doing is going to help possibly lower the taxes on the homeowners, hopefully. We need other people to do that and be cognizant of that. I like the way the architect has worked and the things he's explained, and I guess, Mr. Chair, tell you I will vote for this.
Charlie?
I think our favorite cow's gonna have nice neighbors.
Only you would think of that, Charlie. Only you.
Pat? Follow that one up, Pat.
Oh, man.
I have just one question for the architect. On the bottom, on Union West Boulevard, is there 3 entrances there, or is there just one?
There's 3.
Yes, there will ultimately be 3 access points, which we spoke to the folks in traffic, and they are permitting us to have 3 access points. Initially,
Is there a service road that?
no, there's no service road that needs
Just
to come into
directly
this. So effectively, this will be the first access point that we will construct.
Okay.
This will be the second, which will be really for visitors, and that to come directly into the office portion of the building that will attach to the front of the factory. And the reason this point is here is so that we can have a full circle, if you will, or the ability to have vehicles maneuver all the way around the site. So the back of the building is essentially simply a 20-foot wide access road. There's nothing else back there. Nothing is contained behind the building.
We did vet that through NCDOT. They submitted, and we also spoke with DOT, and they were comfortable with the reaction.
Christopher?
I'm all in. Business owner myself, I think this is fantastic. You guys have been able to flourish during the pandemic, and my hat's off to you. Congratulations, and I hope that 200 turns into 400 eventually.
In reviewing everything, first off, it's consistent with the 2050 plan that this board unanimously approved. We're adding to the employee base. The building expansion is done at no small expense above and beyond. This should be an example of a company that we want to invest. This should serve as an example to others as what we want here in Union County, the type of investment, the types of projects, the types of job creating opportunities. And that being said, I'm all in. So do we have a motion?
I move we approve as submitted.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make that cow happy.
Make that cow happy.
Look after the cow.
All right, that brings up the cow. No, rezoning case CZ 2021-010, Rory. Charlie?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the applicant and I are longtime friends, and we've also partnered on several business ventures in the past, and so I wouldn't be able to look at this without prejudice, and I think I need to recuse myself.
Does anyone have any issues with that?
Mr. Chairman, I have no issue with that. I think it's a good move. Commend Charlie for bringing that to us.
Thank you.
I think you need to take action full board to.
Okay, Do we have a motion to accept his recusal? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, Lee, what do we have here?
All right. As you stated, this is conditional rezoning request 2021-010, titled Rory Rezoning. And it's a request to rezone almost 18 acres of property in Vance Township from kind of split up. We got B4 on a portion of it and RA20 on another portion of it to B4 with conditions in order to expand an existing mini storage building or business on the site. Couple conditions that we would have a recombination plat done to be consistent with the site plan, and that the mini storage and outdoor storage would be built as shown on the conceptual plan. As you can see, proposed site plan, the existing storage buildings you see and the future storage expansions, they were approved as part of a rezoning request, I believe, back in maybe 2013 or so, 2014. I knew Mr. Rory would know. They were, Mr. Rory came before the board back then. We didn't have conditional zoning yet when Mr. Rory originally came, so that was a straight B4 rezoning, and then subsequent to that, he built the self-storage facility. The expansion you would see down here, mainly a large parking area. I believe it'd be for open storage of RVs and boats. I'll let Mr. Rory talk about that a little bit later when he gets up and speaks. But the rezoning request would encompass both of these projects, mainly to make everything consistent. We wouldn't want to have, even though this is currently consistent, it's fine with the ordinance, just make everything B4 conditional to have it one uniform district, so you're not trying to deal with two separate things. It becomes kind of an administrative issue, and Mr. Rory agreed to doing that. Again, looking at the site, you can see the existing mini storage buildings that are there currently. There's a house on site, and I believe Mr. Rory owns that house, and that's the driveway going into the facility. Again, looking southwest, this is the driveway, again, going into the facility. This is looking back at an existing subdivision down at the end of, I believe that's Haywood Road. North of the site, this would be across the street, kind of across the street at an angle. There's an open field. I think this is looking out towards Secret Shortcut Road. And then west of the site, again, you see the street going in, and again, another open field with some intermittent trees. Again, as you can see, this is kind of a donut hole area. You have Indian Trail kind of surrounding it on three sides, and then not necessarily touching the property, but to the south you have the city of Monroe. And again, it is a donut hole, but you'll see in a second that this is not a transition zone because this area is also projected as future employment uses. But you do see a few subdivisions in Indian Trail. Again, at the end of this, I think this is Haywood Road, it's a little dead-end road, a couple subdivisions out there. As you come in off Secret Shortcut onto Haywood Road, again, the Monroe Expressway would be off to your right if you're headed west. There's a nursing home facility, and again, most everything else on that side of the road is pretty vacant. I think it's a farm field right now. As you turn onto Haywood Road, looks pretty rural. There's not, I think, again, there's a large field on the right-hand side as you turn in, and on the left-hand side, there's a little house there, and then you come to Mr. Rory's property, which is, the storage facility and a couple houses. And then as you move down Haywood Road, there's some subdivisions, some townhome developments that were approved years ago by the town of Indian Trail. So it kind of urbanizes as you go toward the end of the dead-end road. There's no really major environmental features on the development site. There are some a little bit to the east of the property. There's a stream. And then as you move north along Secret Shortcut, there's a large floodplain, and I believe that's Crooked Creek, actually. So that's a relatively large floodplain. Properties on either side of that on the Monroe Expressway are currently farmed, and these properties are just large vacant tracts. And then there's actually an old, on this side, there's actually an old mobile home park right there. It's been there for a number of years. Zoning, it is mostly RA20, so sort of medium density residential from the county's definition standpoint. And then you have some SF1 and RA40, which are the lower density categories. This is a little bit erroneous. The tax office wasn't picking up that B4 zoning district, but there is a B4 district already in place, kind of where my cursor is. That's the existing storage units. And as you move down Haywood Road, again, this is all in Indian Trail, but you get some denser zoning with those neighborhoods in the townhome community. Again, as far as transportation, you have a major corridor in Secret Shortcut. It is a 2-lane road facility, but it's a heavily used facility. Many people use that as an alternative to existing, the non-tolled Highway 74. A lot of people use Secret Shortcut. And then you have the new Monroe Expressway on the other side of Secret Shortcut. Those are the only real major corridors in the area. Yes, sir.
Have they identified an estimated time for completion for the 4-lane expansion there, Secret Shortcut?
No, there is no time frame on that. It is identified in the CTP, but there's no funding available and there's no time frame.
Thank you.
Should have been prepared for that one. Again, as I stated, the future Union County 2050 Comprehensive Plan, which is just adopted, identifies this as an employment corridor. That's mainly due to its proximity between the Monroe Expressway and the existing Highway 74. It has good access. There's an interchange at Rocky River Road, which is just to the south of this, so it's not very far at all. Most of those areas were identified as employment corridors. There was a community meeting on February 16th. 3 residents attended that. No major concerns, no proposed changes to the site plan, and we haven't received any phone calls or letters. We did send this out to Indian Trail and Monroe. Again, kind of the same comment we got from Stallings on the previous rezoning. Indian Trail said they supported the land use. Thought that fit in well with the area. Fit in well with their adopted plans and the county's adopted plans, but they would prefer to annex that, but that can't be a requirement. That would be the applicant's choice. Negatives of proposal, again, it's immediately adjacent to some of those residential properties, but there is an existing business already there. This would be very similar to the existing business. It would add some traffic, although a storage facility is a very minimal traffic generator. It's probably one of the lowest traffic generating uses you can put besides a farm field. As far as positives of the proposal, the land use plan does identify this area as a future employment corridor. This use would fit in with that. The site can be served by existing utilities, although the type of use being proposed does not utilize water and sewer, so this would not need water and sewer. So the type of utilities we're really talking about, or I should say infrastructure or services instead of utilities, are really if there's ever a need for law enforcement or rescue vehicles. And our Union County Sheriff's Office can serve that area. And it expands an existing business in Union County. Again, that's a stated goal in the Union County 2050 plan. It's a stated goal of Union County Economic Development, and it's been a stated goal in the previous comp plans that the county's adopted. Based on those positives and negatives, the staff recommendation is to approve the project. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Lee. Any questions for Lee?
Thank you.
Thank you. This time, I'd like to invite the applicant, Mr. Rory, to speak.
I'm Joe Rory. Did you say you had some questions?
No, sir, this is your opportunity to present what you'd like to do.
Okay,
and-
what it amounts to, I'm just trying to expand the parking area for vehicles of any nature, really. RVs, boats, and even work vehicles. All during the summer, we get calls at least twice a week with surrounding areas that has homeowners associations that want to allow parking in the residential areas. And we've accommodated some of that, but we've turned down at least 2 a week all summer. And people don't want to be parked in neighborhoods. And of course, it's advantageous to us, but at the same time, I think it's a service to the community, really.
Sir, I have a question. With this being expanded, if it gets approved, what type of security would you be adding to that now that the vehicles will be outside rather than inside a storage unit? Do you have you considered type of security
Well,
measures?
6-foot chain link fence, and we'll have same kind of lighting at night, all night lighting that we have now.
Okay. Do you have any security, like lights or systems, just in case? I'm just thinking of theft or...
Right. We have, I live on the property.
Okay.
I live right there. In fact, it's in my backyard.
Okay.
We would have lights like we've got on the property now,
Okay.
and then we'll also have cameras too.
Okay, the cameras, okay. Thank you, sir.
Other questions for the applicant at this time? Thank you, sir. This time, I'd like to open public comments. Mr. John Dotto.
Good evening. My name is John Dotto. I live at 2047 Oakstone Drive, which is at the, I guess it would be the south section of that property at the point. Right now, he has on his property high-pressure sodium lights, which are those orange-looking colored lights. My concern is not about the expansion of what he wants to do, it's with the lighting. I just don't want to be flooded, and I'm sure, and our neighbors are on the same page with us, that we don't want our back of our properties to be lit up like a baseball field. So I'm not sure. I know the slope of the property slopes towards our property, and I know there's a buffer zone and there's an easement through the HOA at the back of our property. So the concern, and I wanted to attend his meeting that he had at his home, but we were out of town. But I would have been there if we were here. The main concern is the lighting. Right now, it's not bad because it's further up on the hillside, but I'm not sure how many more units he wants. He didn't state how many more units he's going to install. He didn't state how close they are going to be to the property line on the south side of that property. So there are some of the questions that I'd like to get asked or answered. And is the light going to be on all night? And how many lights are there going to be?
Real quick, if there was a condition here that just required full cutoff lights, as we discussed with the last proposal,
Right.
meaning 0-foot candles at the property lines, would that allay that concern that you have?
It all depends on what direction they're facing. I mean, if he's going to have security lights at night, he's going to have a fence around the property, which is great. But if the lights are facing the homes that are on that side of the property, on the downside of that property, the backyards are going to be lit up at night, and that is something that and our neighbors are definitely against that.
So with a 0 cutoff, just to clarify, what they could do is take a photo meter and essentially hold it at the lot line, and there's no measurable light that would actually lighten up your backyard.
No, I'm familiar with that. But again, I have no problem with his expansion of the property. It's good. I know the traffic will be very minimal because of its use. And the other concern is tractor trailers. Are there going to be tractor trailers that are going to be parking there? That wasn't stated either. I know there's a tractor trailer that parks on his property now. So my concern is that going to expand, or is that going to let other tractor trailers park there? So there are questions that I think should be answered.
Thank you.
Other than that, I'm okay with him expanding it, but I'm just worried about the lighting.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
It's me. There's already a condition, it's probably hard to see on the screen, but there's a condition on here already under outdoor lighting. It says that lighting should not be directed toward or shine upon any residential areas or endanger motorists traveling on any street. And exterior lighting shall comply with the Union County UDO, which means it would have to be full cutoff lighting. I will say, when it was originally built, we were operating under a different land use ordinance. It was prior to the 2014 ordinance being written. So the old ordinance didn't have any, it was minimal for the requirements regarding lighting. 2014, it was like full cutoff and a zero split canvas property line.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir, Mr. Vice Chair.
In connection with your question and Lee's answer, will there be a lighting consultant brought in on this project to talk to the Board of Commissioners if it goes to the Board of Commissioners?
That would be up to Mr. Rory. I don't know if he would hire that, but as part of the site plan review process, there is a requirement to have a lighting plan. So you have to do, that's a minimum requirement. Every development that has lights has to be there.
Okay.
Mr. Rory, would you like to address Mr. Dotto's concerns?
I'm sorry?
Would you like to address Mr. Dotto's concerns or questions?
I thought I heard him say that the water drained back toward the subdivision, is that right?
I think his questions were about lighting and.
Lighting.
Noise and truck noise.
Say it again.
I think his concerns were about lighting, about lights.
Yeah.
Whether tractor trailers would be stored.
No tractor trailers. And that tractor trailer is owned by another property owner. That's my son-in-law, but he owns that property. And so there wouldn't be any tractor trailer parked in there, no. It's a vehicle parking area. Could be straight trucks or boats, RVs, stuff like that, but no tractor trailers. And that water drains, if you'll look, I thought I heard you say that, but that water drains back toward where that tractor trailer's parked, in that direction, toward the storage is, where the storage is now.
And I think his other question was about lighting.
And the lighting would be of the same sort it is now from Union Power.
So, okay, yeah, and so we would require full cutoff lights. Union Power does have those, so they would have to put those in. That's, if they're gonna light the site, it has to be, so it wouldn't be the type of lights you have now. It would be a little bit different.
Any more questions?
I propose the same type of lighting now.
Patrick?
I have one question for you. You have security all around the whole place. You said a chain link fence?
Yeah.
You have a gate that comes in?
I'm sorry?
You have a gate that comes into the parking area?
I'm not here again.
Do you have a gate that comes into the parking area?
You have a gate.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's a key gate.
Now, can the fire department get into that?
Can the fire department get into it?
Yep,
Okay.
sure can.
Any additional questions for the applicant at this time? Thank you, Mr. Rory. At this time, I'd like to close the public comment section and open up a discussion among the board. Pam, would you like to do the honors?
Yeah, Mr. Dotto brought up a good point with the lighting, and I mean, that's why we were having this conversation originally, is I'm not sure if we agreed that there's going to be the same lighting or there's going to be different lighting, and Mr. Fisher's perspective is how can we best prepare him to go before the board and make sure that we're addressing Mr. Dotto's concern? Because right now, I don't feel 100% that we answered that. And I want to make sure they're in the most best light of that. And I'm not sure how to proceed right now with a thought or yay or a nay. I don't know what the suggestion would be.
Well, he has to follow the ordinance of the county. He can't go beyond that. So whatever the county says he has to do, that's what he has to do.
I think to address Pam's concern as far as being prepared to go before the Board of Commissioners, perhaps asking them, I know it's not required, but to have a photometric study, which would be required as a condition anyways, in hand for that presentation to show that there is in fact no light spillover at any of the lot lines.
Yeah, just to prove, I guess, because I want to make sure we're also addressing, am I saying your name right? Okay, Mr. Dotto, I want to make sure that we're also addressing his concerns. Because as a resident, I would probably have the same concerns because I brought that up with the last situation, so.
Thank you.
Those are my 2 cents.
No, a very good point. Lee?
I would suggest that maybe our staff, talk to Mr. Rory and talk about the specific requirements of the ordinance. That's generally not something we do on a conditional rezoning, because again, they're conceptual plans and they don't really get into talking about the types of lights that are going to be on the site until we get to the full plan review. I think in this case that might be appropriate. He's always come in when we've asked him to. So
Right.
I think if he came in and sat down with myself and maybe Jim and Bjorn, we could, kind of talk about what the ordinance requires. And you could, even though the minimum requirements of the ordinance are that they have to be full cut off and, so on and so forth, 0-foot candles. A lot of times, I've seen the planning board and board of commissioners, even though it's a requirement, put it as a condition just to reiterate how important that issue is.
Well, I'm even willing to go out at night and stand there and see what it looks like now and see what it would be. I mean, I'm willing to do that because I want to make sure that we're providing 100% to the community and to a business owner. We could go for a road trip.
That is a very good point. Robert?
It seemed to me that because of the UDO, that the lighting question was answered one way or the other. It also seemed to me, he said it's RVs, boats, trailers, homeowners who can't park things on their property, not tractor-trailer parking. So those 2 questions, those 2 concerns have been answered. The resident is okay with the security around it. You can see that he's going to have some shrubbery to sort of hide that fencing as well. It's all gravel, so it's not impervious surface. Other than that, I don't have a problem with the project at all.
Louie?
Same thing, as far as the lighting goes, we have a gentleman who's concerned about light, I understand that. However, if you take a look, they want to change the zoning from B4 and RA20, but it's already its own business, and businesses have a right to do business. I can understand you, I don't want to see lights either, but as long as we insist they enforce this lighting ordinance where at the end of this property line, that light stops. And it's not like there's a light shooting at your house, it goes straight down, and so you'll be able to see the places. It does exist, you'll be able to see it at night, but it's not gonna affect your home. That would suit me. And everything else about it is the same thing I had about the last deal. It's you and I have had many discussions about this tremendous amount of residential business we're putting in here. These are jobs, this is income, this is tax money, that stays away from our school system, it stays off our roads for the most part. So, yeah, it's a wonderful deal, as long as this gentleman doesn't get burned in the process with the light. And the light, Lee has got under control. So, I think it's a good deal.
Vice Chairman Fisher.
The biggest concern I brought up a minute ago is the lighting, Mr. Chair. As long as we can fix this, Patrick, I believe you were on the board when we had that kind of a 7-Eleven top operation come before us out about, I think it was off Rocky River, a new store that wanted to go in, and the people had lighting concerns and everything like that. And they finally got that resolved. I don't know if it was ever officially approved or not, but I think the same approach to the, and Lee, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Lee, in this lighting situation, you remember out on 200 when they were looking at putting in a new 7-Eleven type store a few years back, and you guys worked with them on the lighting? If we take that approach with this gentleman here, I think we can come to a resolve and fix that lighting. But I'd like to see some type of approach like what y'all did back then. Okay? I don't recall what it was, but y'all did some in-depth look at it and things.
Could I make a comment? Is it all right? I live on that property, and the road, and my property actually goes on beyond me, and I pick up the trash on that road every week for Oakstone and the other neighborhoods. And so I get a lot of conversations on that road. They'll stop and they'll say, hey, we like to walk, we like the lights out here because we didn't have any lights. We don't have any street lights. So they've really been advantageous to the people that like to walk at night. And I'll be out picking up trash on Mondays, and they'll stop and they'll always comment, you know, that they like the lighted area because it is dark on a dead-end road, you know.
Thank you, Mr. Rory.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Patrick?
I'm good with it. I think Lee's got it handled with the lighting situation, so.
Christopher?
I'm in the same boat. I mean, he lives on the property. I can't imagine he wants lights beaming through his kitchen window every night as well. So I think as long as we've got that in check, I'm all in.
So if I'm not mistaken, it's already identified as a future employment use. It's consistent with the 2050 plan, negligible traffic impact. It's a service the community has requested, and the only sticking point is subject to a photometric study that's required anyways, which it appears to be in compliance. I have no objections, and I really don't have any concerns as presented that this would not only be a benefit to the community, but it would also protect the neighbors from the additional light. To Mr. Rory's comment, unfortunately, the neighbors walking up and down the street would probably be disappointed because a zero cutoff would not do much benefit for them. That being said, do we have a motion?
I make a motion, it be approved.
Do we have a second? All in favor? Thank you. That being closed out, moving on to the planning staff report. Mr. Jensen.
I don't have much as far as the staff report for this month. It's getting late, so we're probably all ready to go home, but I will report back on some recent rezonings. The solar farm rezoning out off of Rocky River Road, south of 200.
The one we unanimously approved, correct?
The one unanimously approved was turned down by the Board of Commissioners. And oh my gosh, we had another one, and I just drew a blank.
Sorry
The
to
Crane
share.
Road the one where the gentleman was taking one lot and he wanted to cut it into two, but they were really small. You recommended to deny that one. It was turned down by the board, and I've completely drawn a blank on the third rezoning.
Cell tower?
No, it
No,
wasn't the cell
there's
tower. It's
another one.
the one there on, I believe it was, is it Lancaster Highway? The body shop.
That's it. Yes, it was approved.
Okay, good.
That was yeah, that's right. It was the body shop, but what he wanted to do was build mini storage units. And that, again, that was kind of the same situation as these two. It was an employment corridor. It was recommended for approval, and that was approved by the board. That's it regarding rezonings. We do continue to work on the 2050 implementation committees with some of those proposals that were included in the 2050 comp plan. We are working with those groups. Probably in April, we will have, we hope in April, we will be ready to make some presentations to you and the Board of County Commissioners. We promised sort of a midpoint check-in. Those committees have all met. They've come up with some great ideas. Some of those ideas will be amendments to the development ordinance to bring in some of the recommendations from the 2050 plan to make them things that are options in the ordinance or things that we're more heavily regulating. But some of the ideas may be more legislative in nature. So some things to some ideas that these committees have had to take to our local delegation to maybe get passed at the General Assembly to change state law on some items. So we're going to, like I said, we promised a midpoint check-in, mainly for two reasons: to keep you informed, because a lot of those text amendment ideas will come back to you for recommendations, so we want you to know what they're working on, and also for some feedback to the committees to make sure that they are on the right track and there's just not any ideas that are, dead on arrival. They don't want to spend time with things that, the planning board or ultimately the Board of County Commissioners just absolutely doesn't support. And with that, that's the staff report. Any questions about any of that?
Can you give us why it was the solar was turned down by them? They give you.
Is mainly harmony with the area. It didn't fit in, with the existing rural character of the area. That was probably the main reason. I'm really going off those consistency statements, to be honest with you.
Thank you, Lee.
You're welcome.
That being said, we move on to brief comments. Pam?
I'm actually going to be silent today. I think I said everything I need to say today. Thank you.
Robert?
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to say, it was good for a change to get some commercial expansion rezonings in here. As the gentleman was talking about it in the public comment session about what he feels is overdevelopment, we've certainly faced a lot of residential rezonings, and it was nice to see some commercial development going on in this county.
Agreed. Louie?
As do I. Robert was right. You do commercial development, the local guys do the work locally instead of driving to it from Charlotte and running all of our roads and stuff. We make tax dollars. It's a wonderful deal. There's got to be a balance between creating business as well as putting up houses, because if you have too many houses, your tax base is too high for you to live here. You need some industry to carry some of that burden, and this guy would carry quite a bit. The guy would build those trailers. I pay some taxes, boy. So that's my thought. I think it's balanced. Tonight balanced out quite a bit of good stuff here.
Charlie?
I'm happy to see some industrial development brought to the board, and I'm happy to see our cow having something to do.
Pat?
I agree with Charlie too, and the fact that it was brought in the right areas that we were able to approve it.
Christopher?
I drive down Cuthbertson every morning, I have to take my high schooler there, and you are absolutely correct. It is a nightmare morning and afternoon, and I drive down Providence to get to work up at 485. So I can empathize with your sentiments. It is a challenge. At the same token, I moved here 6.5 years ago, so I am part of the problem, as are you and the rest of us that sit on this board.
Not me.
But
First generation in Union County. I have a southern accent.
it definitely needs to be a balance for sure, and we hope that we're being prudent and responsible enough to make some informed decisions that benefit you as well as the rest of us up here and the county at large. So hopefully not too many more developments on that road.
Vice Chairman Fisher.
For the next meeting, Lee, on the agenda, first item will be Charlie was going to make a site visit to the cow and make us a report on how that cow's doing. Okay.
It needs to be
We'd like
represented.
pictures. We'd like right up here on the screen, Charlie. Will you do that for us?
Yeah, I'll have a conversation with the cow.
Okay, you do that and find out how he's being taken care of. Clarification, Lee, did the cell tower pass over the BOC or not?
It did not. The cell tower was
Okay.
turned down.
I thought that's what you said. I just wanted to make sure. Okay. The comments made at the first of the meeting about Providence. I moved here over 9 years ago. It's worse now it's ever been, but I think the only way we're going to fix that is having the right people elected at the state level to give our transportation department more money. I think had some of y'all been here the last meeting, you would have heard reports about where some of the, time out. That was at my Rotary Club. I apologize. Forget that statement. You can check with me afterwards if you want to know what was said. But I must say this. I've known each one of these people here for quite a long while. I'm probably right now the longest sitting member on this board. And I've seen a lot of people come and a lot of people go. But I assure you that I don't know of one of them that sits up here that anybody has a right to say that we're in cahoots with developers. That's absolutely 100% wrong. And I assure you that, sir. We've turned down more stuff. You know where Southern Style is in Waxhaw?
I do not.
Art, you know where that's at?
Yeah.
Okay. They tried to put houses back in there and an office building, stuff like that. We turned that down. That's in the county. And it was subsequently turned down by the Board of Commissioners.
The
So
comment I made, sir, was not that you're in cahoots with the developers.
that's what I heard.
Well, I did never said those words.
Okay.
You mistook what
I respect that.
My impetus was, this board represents the citizenry.
Absolutely.
Okay, and we have no voice in voting for these overdevelopments, these large tract developments. These roads cannot handle them. North Carolina
Absolutely.
DOT is not going to make the improvements. They keep kicking the can down the road.
We can address that after the meeting, sir. Sir, we'll address that after the meeting, I could promise you.
I was going to clarify, I didn't use those words.
Thank you.
Did not, and never would.
So in my closing comments, first off, I'd like to echo the comments of the majority of the board members. The commercial use, the business expansion is a breath of fresh air, and it's welcome here. And I want to make that explicitly clear to anyone listening. This is what we need in this county. The second item I'd like to address, it hit me this evening, and that's Louie's departure from the board. Now, those of you who know Louie, there's a lot of things you could say about him, but you will never, ever wonder what he thinks. He has been a wonderful member of this board. Even if we don't always agree, we can shake hands at the end of the day. And the enthusiasm and commentary he brings to these meetings just surely irreplaceable. He will be missed.
I'll miss you guys.
Thank you for your service, Louie. That being said, after the meeting, I will make myself available. If any other board members care to make themselves available to speak to the gentleman one-on-one, I would recommend it. I think community engagement is great, and I think there's a lot of consensus. But, of course, we don't need to necessarily address that up here in front of the board when we have business to address. That being said, it's time to adjourn. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Good night.
You guys wouldn't mind leaving your notebooks, we will reuse those for next week. And that was.
Thank you, we're here. Yeah, I know, I am back. I am gonna come back. I've been here for half a century, for God's sake, I'm never gonna leave forever. I'm gonna rent a house. Are you gonna rent it? Is it big enough for everybody? If you come down one, two at a time. Why don't you fill the house with 77, for God's sake? My pleasure, my friend.
Okay, thank you. I was going to ask him for that. Thank you.
Got my wife and family there.
St. Augustine?
Yes.
Oh, Palm Coast area?
But, yeah.
You on Palm Coast?